Hello YouTube, this is the Atlanta Puzzler with part 2 on how to make your own 3x3 shape modifications. In part 1 of the series, we took an existing 3x3 design and we copied the edges and the corners and the centers around the cube in circular patterns, and we produced this model here, which is 26 parts with their center caps, a total of 32 parts. And the reason why you want to do that, because when you're doing shape mods, you don't know how unique, you know, sometimes different corners look different from one another, so you can't just have one corner. You want an instance for each one of the 8 corners, because potentially each one of them could look different. That's why you want to do this. Okay, so to before I get started, I just wanted to talk about the inspiration of this series. I watched a series of video tutorials by on a YouTube channel called rcpongo. I think the I think the channel's owner's name is Troy, and it was a great series. It's basically what inspired me to make this. And the difference is, he uses a tool called Blender is a mesh modeler, sort of like for 3D design, but it can also do puzzles. And since Onshape is a CAD tool, I wanted to kind of make a version of what he talked about just using Onshape. I think that's also beneficial. Um, but you can check out his series. It's extremely useful. It's basically the inspiration of this series. So, anyways, uh, to get started with this video really quick, I just want to scroll down at the bottom and highlight all the features. Highlight all the features that we skipped. If you remember in the last video, I'm gonna delete those. Highlight them and delete them because we don't need them. I'm gonna get rid of them. And really quick, I'm gonna edit this guy, this sketch cutting profile. Double click on it, and let's go normal to the sketch. And if you zoom in, you'll notice that there's a constraint here that says 5 millimeters under the surface. What that means that your mechanism is always going to be 5 millimeters under the surface of the cube. And since I want to enlarge this cube, I want to make it much larger, I don't want the mechanism to extend and always be 5 millimeters under that larger cube. I want it to remain the same, not ever change. So go ahead and delete this 5 millimeters and add a dimension from here and click on the x-axis, and I would have thought this would say 23.5. Okay, make sure it says 23.5 and do OK. I must have changed something that changed that number, but anyways, do OK. And it's going to take a little bit to recut the cube. The other thing I want to change is, if you edit the same sketch, I want to zoom out and extend this line by a lot. Like, you need to increase it significantly just in case, and do OK. And it should generate, nothing should change from this one. Okay, good. Alright, so let me go ahead and hide the sketch. And if you remember, we sketched a square and we extruded it to form the cube. And this is this guy. This is this sketch cube. And this guy is set to 57 millimeter, but it's actually not a hard-coded value. It says pound width. And this pound width is this parameter here. This guy says 57. So if I'm going to increase this to 12 centimeters and do OK. And it should increase the sketch of the cube and extrude it and Now I should end up with a much larger cube, and that larger cube will still gonna have the original proportions of the 57 millimeter, but it's actually much larger. It's gonna look something like this. Let me go ahead and hide the sketch. Okay, so this is great. This is what you want. And we're going to treat this as this, what you're looking at, is like a blueprint that we're going to use to cut any shape cube that we want. Okay, so we created this. The next thing I want to do real quick is I want to I want to create a cube inside, a solid cube inside on the front plane. So go ahead and choose the front plane for a sketch, and really quick just create a center rectangle, or center square, I'm sorry. Choose these two, make sure they're equal, and add a dimension, and we'll make sure that's 57, and click extrude and make sure it's symmetric by 57 millimeters, and do OK. And I don't know if it's obvious, but we created a solid cube. Let me go ahead and hide other parts. This is what we created. So it's a solid cube inside of that larger cube that we created earlier. So I'll do show all parts. Let me quickly rename this to a cutting cube. So the idea is that smaller blue cube inside is going to be used to cut out the mechanism out of this large guy, out of that larger cube. And I like to, if you want, go ahead and highlight these 32 parts, and right click on them, and let's do transform this guy, and the drop down choose copy in place, and it's gonna make a copy of all of them. And this 33 should almost double now. It should go to 65 maybe. It's gonna take a while. Okay, 65, that's correct. So we have a lot more parts, and what you want to do is just, this is optional, but I highly recommend you do it. Above the cutting cube, this part 32, everything above from part 1 to part 32 is the original part. So I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to change it to something significantly different. Choose purple basically. Okay, and do OK. And now everything is purple, but what you need to know is if you hide like this part, for example, hide part 9. Oh, that didn't work. Sorry. So once we color those purple, this cutting cube, choose everything after. Part 34 on, hold shift, choose those, and edit appearance, and put those back at gray, and do OK. And so what's going to happen now, if I hide this part, you'll see the copy is, you basically have two parts stacked on top of one another. The copy is black or gray, and the original we changed to purple. Okay, I just changed the colors so that we can tell which is which, and that's optional. I just didn't want it to be confusing. So choose all the copies, and let's hide them because we don't need them for now. And to explain what I'm trying to do by this setup, this is all it's more preparation, unfortunately, but basically choose one layer, and let's right click and do hide. Okay, so I had two layers, and let's show our cutting cube real quick. Here we go. here's the cutting cube. So the idea is we're going to use Boolean tools to subtract this guy from these 9 parts, something like this. I think I missed a part. I missed a center. Here we go. And do OK. And you'll see we created a profile of a 3x3 cube in a way, if that makes sense. And that we're going to take this profile and cut it out of the prints, out of the copy that we made, the black parts, and we'll end up with a cube. And hopefully that makes sense. I'll talk about it in more details in the next video. I'm sorry I made parts 1 and 2 sort of like preparation for the design. It's just I hate to create these very long videos. I feel like it's easier for me to make shorter videos, and for you guys to, it'll give you guys like stopping points to track, instead of watching a long video. But anyways, it's a preference. Let me know in the comments if you disagree. But I want to stop this video here and talk, start designing the actual shape mods and parts 3, 4, and 5 and so on. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I'll see you in the next part. Thanks.